scholars, this is Makito here, and today I'll be introducing you to Chapter 5 of the Attack and Defense book. In the first chapter, we discussed attacking for territory for power, right? Attacking for territory and attacking for power. That was Chapter 1. Chapter 2, we talked about attacking strategies. Chapter 3, we introduced 5 severe attacking moves. In Chapter 4, we went over defense. So now we're finally on Chapter 5, talking about forcing moves. Forcing moves, or kikashi, are sente moves that bring its players some potential advantage without having to be followed up or to be defended. The two rules I got from reading this chapter was one, your forcing moves need to have value. Essentially, it should help you without needing help, right? We won't have to, which is rule 2, defend the forcing move. So once we use a forcing move, like something like a peep, then we won't have to save it. That's the key to forcing moves. So let's take a look at some examples. White to play. So the big move is A. So white wants to play A. And black has a defect at B. But you can't wedge. So then what, right? And if we try and wedge, you can see that black can Atari and then take, or then can Atari like this, right? And so we can see that black can um, connect no matter what, and so you can't wedge successfully, right? And so what do we do then? Well, this is where we use our forcing move. Here, you can see that this move helps specifically with black if black was to play A. So let's say if we just played this by itself, then we might be susceptible susceptible to a move like this, right? You can see white got flattened down, black expanding its moyo. But once we play something like this, if black was to try the same thing, we can see we can get kind of a good result here. The book doesn't go specifically what the best result would be for white here is, but it states that this move specifically will help against these two moves. So what should black do, right? Well, black is one move away from getting cut. If black was to play anything else, then white would cut through, and now there is no problem. Right now, black actually is the one with the big problem here. So black would probably answer like this, which you can see white forced black to play here, and now white goes and takes the big moves. This exchange for 1 and 2 is already very nice. White stones help with fighting and ladders, right? This move helps with fighting, it helps with ladders, while black stone is connecting where he essentially was connected. It's a wasted stone. White has scored off black and got the big point. So ideally, black was already connected here because the wedge didn't work. And so when black is forced to connect here, it kind of feels wasted, right? And so that's the problem. And what's good for white. So white did a good job making this exchange and then taking the big move. Let's take a look if white decided to save this stone, right? Because we can see that if black pushes through, white's going to be in trouble, right? And so technically this stone isn't safe. But remember the rule not to defend forcing moves. So let's take a look. If white was to defend this forcing move, now black crunches here, which took the big move. And then, let's read the script here. One thing to keep in mind is not to protect your forcing moves. If white went back to save 1 with 3, he would lose the big move at 4. And after the exchange for 1 and 2, the forcing move is expendable, right? We talked about how we don't care if this lives or dies after it did a good result. So yeah, this would be much better for black, right? We can clearly see black's the one making a lot of profit. There was no need to save the stone, and so it's a wasted move here. So that was a very clear and clean cut way of looking at forcing moves, right? The peep peeping to cut is definitely a forcing move. Let's take a look at the next example. So this one, the book starts with pretty much 4 problems. If you guys want to pause the video, you can try and answer them. It's white to play. One thing I want to explain is in each problem, the big move, right? Just like how the big move was over here for white last time. The big move now is this one. So white's going to get as many forcing moves as it can, and then it's going to go for the big move, right? Um, so A, B, or C, what do you think the best forcing move is? You can pause it now. I'll give you the answer. The answer is C. And the reason, so black has to connect, and then white takes the big move. This forcing move obstructs black's movement and helps with ladders, right, and fighting. And black 2 has no such positive value. So whereas black 2 really is just capturing a stone that was pretty much captured, white is doing a good job of limiting black's movement, and it's going to be useful for ladder breakers and all sorts of stuff. So just an example, if white was to play this without playing the forcing move, black's next move could easily be here, and you can see how far and nice black gets to move compared to the other way, right? Compared to if white peeps here first. Like, black can't play this now, right? Because white's just going to come out in some manner, and it's not going to be as good for black, right? Maybe, yeah, the book doesn't cover it per se, but for me, I don't think this would be good for black, right? I think this would be pretty difficult because white can split these groups apart. So that's why we use this forcing move first. I really like how it limits black's movement, right? Like if black's playing this, this is far slower than if black got to play this. All right, let's move on to the next problem. Problem number 2, white to play. And just like last time, this marked spot is the place, it's the big move. It's where white wants to play. But white has some forcing moves that they can use, either one or more. And so we want to look to find them. Go ahead and pause the video and see which one do you think white would use as a forcing move. All right, I'll give you the answer. And the answer is C. Because once we Atari here, now black has gone into a farmer's hat shape, which is an empty triangle here. And so now, once we take this, black has to swallow these 2 stones in Gote, and it allows white to play the next move. White 1, the forcing move, detaches the 2 marked stones. This makes the push at A much better compared if we don't cut. So let's look at the difference between this cut and not cutting at all. The idea, just to show you, is like if white plays here next and black tanukis, then this type of move would be really good, right? Because you can see that black can get cut off, or if we just use it for squeezing techniques, it's still like a really good like loose ladder type squeeze, right? So the chopping here, chopping these 2 groups is very useful for making this group uncomfortable. So let's take a look if we don't do that, right? What if we just play this directly? Well, now black doesn't have any problems here, right? And if you were to try and cut here now, it's very clear that white's fine, right? Black has a much better shape and less pressure. Remember the other shape, black was in an empty triangle, but now in this shape, black's in a nice tiger's mouth. So the shape is already better, and this stone gets swallowed up a little more easier, right? Even if we go back to this variation and we don't want to use this stone, what if we want to pull this out, right? We can pull this out in all sorts of different manners. So chopping here, or taking the forcing move here, puts black in bad shape, and it's better for white to attack these 2 stones. Very, very cool problem. It's fairly simple to find these forcing moves, and they have really important uses, right? I really like these problems a lot. Problem number 3. white to play. In each, yeah, as you guys know, the mark stone is the valuable move, right? This is the move that white wants, but white's first going to use some forcing moves. Now, I'll give you a hint that I didn't give in the live class, so you guys are lucky. But there's two forcing moves, and the order does matter. So pause the video and see if you can find them in the right order. All right, I'll give you the answer. The first one to use as a forcing move is A, because A is pretty devastating against these stones here, right? It would pretty much take the whole corner. So black's going to respond. And at this point, now there's another forcing move, which was here. You can see black becomes what's called the B2 bomber. And it's essentially just a dumpling shape. It's clearly good for white. White now comes back and takes this black stone. The order of 1 and 3 matters. Black is made into a dumpling shape, and white is happy. If we do white 3 first, so let's take a look at if some of you picked B first. So if we Atari here first, black's going to respond. And when we peep here, now there's not really a devastating cut here because this peep has already been finished, right? This weakness is already tied up. So if white was to well, now, as you can see, black doesn't need to play here. Instead, black will play this. And so now this only has two liberties. So that's a big problem, right? Very painful. Once you help black connect at 2, the peep at 3 is non-threatening. Black kills the 3 white stones. So let's take a look. Try and remember this. Let's take a look at this, right? If black tried the same thing, well, now we can Atari and Atari, right? And so white's not going to die. So that's the big difference between playing this. Because now when you play this, black just dies, right? Or sorry, white dies. So there's a big difference in the order of things. There was one more thing we could talk about. Let me see. So black would then play this, right? And then here. So if black plays A, white now clamps on this. And if black plays this way, black still has a weakness. The mark stone made 4 sente. So this white stone made this sente. And it's still valuable. The idea is that we can use this as a running ladder, or we can, play a forcing move out here, right? And then force black to capture. So this move still has some value, even though clearly it's going to die. Whereas this mark stone has no value, right? This isn't really doing much of anything. And so this exchange of the Atari here put black in bad shape, and then we got to attack on the outside, which made 4 sente because this was here. So we can look at this if we didn't play this way, right? We can look at it like this. Let's see. Well, one more thing I want to look at is when black plays B. So last time we played this, but if black takes right now, this is going to be a key theme where white plays the angle Tetsuji. If black just takes right away with 5, white gets in front of 6 with the angled Tetsuji. Let's see what happens if the forcing move was never played. Okay, so let's do that. But you can see that if black takes this right away, we'll use this move quite often. It's very nice. It is here. So if we don't use this forcing move, right, and then we just take, black's going to Atari, black fixes itself, and now this white 4 isn't sente, so black gets to hit us on the head. If the forcing move is never played, black gets much stronger. This is a much better position with no defects. Vastly different from what we saw when white used the forcing move, right? It chopped these two groups up, just like in problem number 2, and then it made that the chopping better for Sente, right? Because this would be Atari right now. So really cool stuff to understand. I really like these problems a lot, right? They show you what forcing moves are and how to use them. I really like that. This should be the last of the problems, and then we'll get more into the lecture. Problem number 4, white to play. Remember, the mark stone is where white wants to play for value. Excuse me. Um, but we want to use as many forcing moves as we can in the right order, right? So between A, B, and C, what do you think the best forcing move is? I'll let you pause the video now if you want to try. And I'll give you the answer. So the answer is B. So when B plays, white plays here, black should respond, right? We can see that black's in trouble. If black Tanuki's somewhere, then this is already good for white, right? White has taken over the corner. Some of that depends on the surrounding area, but in general, like losing this corner would be pretty painful and letting white connect. So normally we would cut this apart, but then white can take the valuable stone. Number 4 is a forcing move, but white is in a good position. White forces black 2 and then takes the good stuff. What if white played 3 first? So let's show what would happen if we didn't play the forcing move. Before that too, I just want to state that if white was to, let's see, if white was to, oops, take this stone, then once again we can use the angle Tetsuji, which is really nice for black. If white was to play this instead of this, because it's trying to avoid getting forced here, you can see that there's a weakness here at A, and there's a weakness here at B, right? And so, sorry, maybe I'm not explaining that right, but if white, I'll just use the script so that you guys know. If white plays 3, not to be forced, black gets Sente with A, or can attack with B later, right? So we can see that this would be Sente, because if white plays anywhere else, then black just kills these stones. And if black later wants to pull these stones out, he'll be able to come out, but it needs some help. It needs some help to do that. But the weakness is still here. So it's something to keep in mind. So finally, let's look at if we didn't play the forcing move, right? So if we just played the mark stone, which is a good move, black is going to play the forcing move, and then another forcing move, right? And when white takes, now A is a big problem. Um, the idea is black forces white at 2 and 4, and black gets a large corner and can still attack at A, right? So we can see that black's corner is far more solid compared to the other variations. So I thought this was really cool to consider these forcing moves, right? Sometimes there's moves that you really want right away, but if you can get a better position using a forcing move, it's better to use. Look at how nice these problems have been. It's a really nice intro to forcing moves. We're gonna move on to some more of the lecture, less of the problems and more of you know thinking about what we're talking about here. All right. So this was a pro game by the author of the book Attack and Defense. I believe that's Ishida, Akira Ishida. White wants to play A, and black wants to play B. So we can see white A would be good here, and black B would be good here. But before that, white wants to use all the forcing moves he can. This was hard for me to find personally, so I'll just give you guys the answer. I did think about this for a bit, and I really didn't see this move coming. But this is really cool. So when white plays here, white 1 is a strong forcing move. It helps the right top group, right? This group up here. And it opens up A and B as follow-up moves. So Black would bump here. I believe this is actually what happened in the game. Black bumps here, and white comes up. There's still a weakness here, so black plays this move here to, strengthen himself. But he had to do so in Gote. So now white got the benefit of playing this forcing move, and then gets to play what it wanted to, the big move. And you can see that after all these exchanges, and I really like this forcing move because it puts black in an empty triangle and chops these two, just like how we were talking about the chop and hold. And so now white plays down to set up a ladder. Black tries to fix, but ends up in Gote at 3, and then white gets to push where he wanted to, right, with this marked stone. Move 8 is another forcing move, making black into an empty triangle and creating a chopping attack that puts pressure on 7. Really, really cool stuff. Um, so next, we can look at if white played this just by itself, right? It played the marked move that it wanted, the big move it wanted to. So if white just played this, well, now black gets to play this forcing move. And because there's a huge weakness at Q18, right? If black was to play here, black would have 2 ways to get out. This group could die. And so white has to respond. And now black gets the next move. And so this becomes pretty much the same thing we saw at the end of white's. But the difference is you can clearly see that black profited compared to white profiting. So this move is considered a double sente, right? It was sente for both players. If white takes the original good move, black takes the forcing move, and black is the one to profit. If white ignores black too, the marked area is a killing move. N17 is considered a double sente. I know sometimes I repeat myself. I like to read the script, and then sometimes as I'm going through it, I like to read what I remember or know. So sorry if I'm like double repeating myself. All right. So far, we've seen all our forcing moves go well, right? Every time we saw a forcing move, the player would have to react to it. But let's take a look at when the black player plays a bad peep or a bad forcing move, and white can resist. On that note, both players should always look for resistance. So every time somebody peeps or tries to force you into something, you should always look at a way to resist if possible. In this case, when black played here, white's not gonna play A. Black wants white to play like this, right, to fill in the peep. But white is gonna play here. And so now you can see, let's read the script. In this case, white resisted with 2. And this actually helped white make thickness towards the bottom. We can see how strong this group is towards the bottom. This is good for white, right? So this peep was actually beneficial for white. Black, on the other hand, has not done much but help white. So the idea is if black played here, then we're going to sacrifice and squeeze. And this is really good. If black goes through with the cut, it just leads to a squeeze. So yeah, now, excuse me. Now we're being introduced with bad peeps and bad forcing moves. These are very important to keep your mind on because as we're learning forcing moves, you might be inclined to try them often, right? And there's a difference. Sometimes, there's good forcing moves and bad forcing moves. And so we have to be very well aware before we make these forcing moves if our opponents are going to respond or not. All right. So let's take a look at this one. If white peeped here, right? Here's a cutting point and white peeped. Can black resist or should black connect? Well, first, if we look at black connecting, this is already forced, right? Black is already forced. The book doesn't go further than this, but as you can see, if white just plays here or here, black's not going to be able to make an eye here. This isn't going to be too good for black. So this is a bad response. Instead, black should look for resistance, right? This is very strong. This is very strong. So why not put like a net over these? If black or white plays up, black can play down. If white was to cut, then black would hit these on the head and kill them. So white pushes forward, and then black connects. And now we can see white can escape. So white can escape, but the forcing moves stand on their own. The idea is that when White played this, White shouldn't have to defend it, right? White shouldn't have to care about it. And the fact that White is defending it, right? We know rule number 2 is don't defend forcing moves. So all this is doing is just creating a weak group for White, and Black was successful in its resistance, right? Black hasn't gotten any weaker. If anything, Black's gotten stronger, and White is very weak. So playing bad peeps can lead to resistance, which then could lead to either heavy groups you don't want or you just dying, right? And so this is really important concept to understand and keep your eyes on. So in this case, if white was to play here, this peep, and black connects, this is what we're being introduced as thank you moves. I see this all the time with double digit Q players up to 5Q. And of course, I'm sure I play them occasionally without knowing. But this is really, really bad. It's like one of the worst things you can do in Go is playing thank you moves. So let's read the script. The point of a forcing move is to make the enemy answer against his own will, right? It's something that he doesn't actually want to do, to suffer some kind of loss. In this case, white won forced black to connect. This is what black wanted, right? Black wanted to connect its groups. So in essence, black should be thanking white, right? So when we look at this, there's a huge weakness here, right? And so if white helps black connect, that's only helping black. But if white splits, like white should have, now black has to make a base. White comes up. Black plays to defend itself, right? And then white comes out. Black once again starts defending its points, trying to keep pressure on white, but white gets to fly. And so now compare this cut versus the thank you move. This cut splits black and does a good job. It's far better to cut here than to use a peep. And then, as I said, when beginners learn about peeps and forcing moves, they do them often, leading to thank you moves, leading them to thank you moves, which are bad, right? And playing a thank you move is bad. So I hope this introduced some more examples on how you can play forcing moves well, and then how you can play them poorly. There's a few more examples. This one I like a lot because I see often when I'm reviewing double digit Q games, right? We see this invasion, and then black will try to peep through. But once black does, white fixes itself, and white doesn't have any problem. On either side, white is okay because there's 3 stones here, right? So if black plays this, white connects. Black plays this, white clamps, and now black's dead. If black plays this, white Hanes, right? We can all see it. And then once again, black is dead. So there's no problem here. So essentially, let's read what happened. Black won here's a common mistake or thank you move. Black loses a liberty with this group. Black loses a co-threat. And black loses a good move at A. So we can see if we left this to co, you could play here or here with a co-threat, which is really nice. You could even consider this like 2 co-threats or 3 co-threats. After this, it gets a little dicey. Um, but that's one thing. Other thing, like they said, is you lose a liberty. And the third one is if black gets to play here and white tanukis, well, now this is pretty devastating to white, right? Because now you have 3 liberties and white only has 2. So this would be a really good thing for black. So if black plays 1, he opens up white to a good invasion. Telling between a thank you move and a forcing move can be quite difficult. Let's look at some more examples. This was a good one. I like this one. I actually messed this one up. So the question is this a good forcing move or a thank you move? If you want to pause the video and ask yourself and take a guess, I'll give you the answer. Um, the answer is that it is a forcing move. This puts white in bad shape. So this marked stone is a wasted stone. So this is a good forcing move. This is really nice. What about this one? If black was to play here, is this a good forcing move or a thank you move? You can pause the video if you want to try. The answer is it is a thank you move. This move makes white stronger. White has no wasted stones, and there is a huge defect for black at A. So black would have to waste his time coming back to fix it, and you can see white can stay ahead, right? White's going to have no problem staying ahead of black to gain more points. Compare that to playing B. Well, now there's a weakness at A. It would be better to play at 1, which is here, and leave the cutting point open at A. So this move is far better because you're not helping white, and white still has a weakness, right? If white was to Tanuki, well, I don't know the best move, but probably something like this looks pretty nice. You could play something like this, and you can see that white is now stuck inside, right? Compare that to the other one, where if we play this, white still has like some really nice jumps and stuff. Or a weakness here. If black fixes, now white has a jump. Alright, so I thought this was good. I thought they were both forcing moves, but this one here was a thank you move. So I messed this one up. Alright, so we're at the end of the lecture now. This is the last one. I remember this one has a lot of variations though. So we're not done yet. This was Kitamura as white versus Ishida, who was playing black. Forcing moves may seem like a side issue, right? They seem like a side move or something. But at high level play, acquiring a small series of advantages can change the whole game. White can't invade black here, but he can force for territory and power. So there's 3 moves here, and all 3 of them will be played in a different order. So if you want to pause the video and take a crack at it, which do you think is the first forcing move white should use on black? Which do you think is the second? And then what do you think is the third? All right, if you pause the video, obviously you had some time to think, and if you just wanted the answer, well, here's the answer. The answer is A. So in the game, white played A. In black, instead of playing the normal move over here, which if black played the normal move here, then white would have a forcing move here. So that's why black didn't play this. So instead of playing the forcing move, black ended up playing this, which is cool because it still helps protect against A, and it opens up an invasion at C. White opens up an invasion. Okay, yeah, white opens up an invasion at A if black played the normal move at B. Black 2 threatens C, so it has a double purpose. White wants to force D and E next. If you guys want to pause the video, which do you think white played next, D or E? Alright, I'll give you the answer. The answer is D. Let's take a look at why. So if white played E first, and black blocked, and then white tried to play D, well now A doesn't matter, right? If we Tanuki, Black's still connected. And so there's no real issue here. Right? There's no issue here or here. And so because white played this wrong exchange first, it gave black power and then it made this one less potent, right? And so that's why in the game white plays this first. If black is to answer like this, white will then play this one. And this is a nice order of moves, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 combo. If black responds to the threat, this is really great for white. White succeeds, but what if white plays S11 instead? S11. Oh yeah, I already went over this. So if white played this first, we saw that this would not work. Let's take a look at what happened in the real game. Instead of black being submissive, black ended up trying to find a resisting move, right? White's move is correct. This is the good move. But black won't submit. Black made a move to resist, and now white has to prove that this is a forcing move. So white first sets up this combo here by hitting this weakness, and black fixes. And now this stone's going to help white, because white pushes down and hanes. Black can't capture with A if he tries. So if black tries to play A to capture, well, now white will just clamp Atari. Apparently on this board, at a pros level, black doesn't have any co-threats. And so black played here and then white played here. And so you can see white has done a good job. Black can't fight the co, and white has taken half the group. These stones are considered dead, that they're going to die. And so this would be devastating for black. So black can't just capture this stone. Instead, let's see. Instead, black played here, which made himself very solid. And white came down. Black cut. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Black cut, and then pushed. White pushed to its other friends. Black came down, white fixed itself, and then black clamped these two stones. So in this game, black takes the 3 mark stones, and white exchanged some profit on the right side. This is what happened in the actual game. So it was very interesting to me to see black get a really good result here when he resisted with this markstone. So I thought this was really cool. So let's see. So now white played this forcing move, and black responded. Then white played this forcing move, and black responded. And then white had 2 choices. In the real game, white played A. So this is another forcing move, right? Because this corner is starting to become in danger. So black responds. So each, for the past few moves, 1, 2, 3, and then all the moves we've been looking at, they've all been considered forcing moves. They're all moves that are keeping Sente. Finally, white plays here. Each of white's moves kept Sente and were forcing moves. White protected A and got to protect the top as well. So you can see with these moves, white was able to protect the invasion and got to protect the top here. Let's go back to B and check if white didn't play 5. So if white just played this without making this exchange, this is considered too good for black. Black would play here, then Atari, and then once black plays A, so black gains pure profit in these exchanges if white doesn't play S14. So if black plays A, then white is in trouble, right? White doesn't have enough for 2 eyes directly. So white has to play another move in Gote. So if black connects, white will need to make 2 eyes in Gote. And so black gets Sente. This is really nice for black. And so that's why white made this exchange up here to play this move. So at this point, white saved. So we see this, right? This is where we were last at. Black forced and made white connect in an empty triangle. Black fixed itself because if white Atari'd here and then came down, these black stones would be dead. And then white chose to save itself. Um, White saved this stone because if black Tanukis. So if black Tanukis here, then white would kick. And there's a huge weakness here. So this is a really good forcing move for white. Black would have to come back and save itself to prevent being forced like this. Black played A. So black didn't Tanuki, black played A to prevent being forced like this. We could see if white plays here, this would be in a lot of trouble. So black played A. Black wanted A, which would help his corner, but white plays B in the real game. So let's take a look at A. So black played this, and to me, this is a very natural move. So this is something I probably would have played. But when we do, black can bulge out and then make the farmer's hat, and then white plays here. But once black has this nice strong group, this would have been a forcing move in Sente, which protected the corner. So essentially, when black made this strong group, this became much more protected. So white played B earlier. So let's take a look at what happened in the game. So white played B instead of A. Black protected. White forced a peep. Black protected. And then white took the big move. So we can see white used many forcing moves to profit. White played 1, so he wouldn't be forced at A. And he profited with 5. Uh-oh. I always hate when this happens. Essentially, there's like a lag glitch or something. And then it like messes up the variation. So I have to get back to it. Let's see. That'd be here. That would be here. And we are back. Okay. So now white played 1, so he wouldn't be forced at A. And he profited with 5, so he couldn't be... Yeah, so he profited with 5. He did not play B. That would be a thank you move instead of a forcing move. So let's take a look at why, because I thought this was very interesting as well. If white was to play B here, then this exchange of 1 to 2 eliminates the possibility of an invasion. So let's take a look at the evasion, if I can find it. I think it's here. Let's see. No, it might be here. Yeah, this is it. So if white gets this move, and then black was Tanuki, and white gets this move, well, now there's a huge invasion in here. If black Ataris, white pushes through. If black makes an empty triangle to block out white, black Ataris. Black takes, white Ataris, black fills, and then white pushes at this weakness. So you can see that if we played here, it would have made black connect, which would ruin this this sequence. So black has to connect, and now white gets to play this. And you can see that white's going to live in the corner, and black's going to doesn't have eyes on the outside here. If white gets the mark stone, he can threaten the weakness in the corner in this manner. White won this game in the end using all the forcing moves we've seen. So that was the end of this chapter. That was every single diagram and variation in the book for chapter 5 about forcing moves. Really, I took away quite a lot from this chapter. I found it really interesting to see that, you know, how the pros resist and how they use their forcing moves to gain small slight advantages. It didn't have this right down in the script, but in the book it was saying that at this point the both players were really even, and there's no real weak groups to attack, right? And so they needed all the small advantages they possibly could find to win the game. And that's what happened with this move, right? And then what came to follow. So guys, remember that forcing moves don't should have value. Now you guys might understand what I'm talking about. It's that idea of, remember the bad peeps versus good forcing moves. The idea of like, if we peep and then they really don't have to answer it, or if they answer it in a way they get stronger, such as thank you moves, that would be really bad, right? And so your forcing moves need to have value. They need to force your opponent to play something they don't want to play, and they need to do it while helping you without needing help, right? Because you don't want to defend your forcing moves. If I remember, the first example was the perfect one about that, which was here, right? We didn't want to defend. Let's see, like this, because now black would take the best move, and we didn't really accomplish much. So once we use our forcing moves, just know that they're good if you don't need to defend them. If we don't care that this forcing move dies, then we're probably playing good forcing moves. All right, guys, that's the end of this lecture. I hope it introduced you to some new concepts and taught you, how useful forcing moves can be. Next chapter we'll be doing inducing moves, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy.